A sailboat in the moonlight and June. Wouldn't that be heaven? Oh, heaven just for two. A soft breeze on a June night and what a perfect setting for letting dreams come true.
We've just received a video from a friend of ours, Peter Jardine. We've commissioned him to make us new cockpit doors, so I'm kind of excited to see this video. He's a very good carpenter, does really good work. He's a wooden boat guy, so you can just imagine.
Hi everyone, Peter Jardine here. I'm Chris Veer's friend, and I've been commissioned to build him a new set of cockpit doors. So in the absence of everybody being able to get together for this, because of our COVID-19 outbreak, I'm going to go through a couple of things for you so you know. We're going to use a Roco for this door instead of plywood, which was the original, or teak. And that's because teak is worth about as much as your firstborn child. And there's the old doors. You can see that the top has started to delaminate off them, and there's a couple of chunks of a Roco in rough form, and that's a big piece of mahogany in behind. And I'm doing a set of doors for his sister-in-law as well, and here's her door with a rough layout cut already and with the wood planed. So the issue is you're gonna put this through the planer, and you're gonna get it down to the appropriate thickness, which I've done. I often tell people my job is to take expensive exotic woods and turn them into sawdust. Now, before I go any further, I want to talk about a little bit about the Janka hardness scale. Janka was an actual guy, and he determined hardness based on how much downward force it would take to embed a .444, or roughly a half an inch ball bearing, halfway into the wood in question. So that gave a measurement that allowed you to compare woods. And to give you an idea, white oak is about 1,400 pounds required to shove that ball bearing in halfway. A Roco is 1,290. Teak is in fact a little bit less hard at 1,090. The issue with the Roco, and I mean a Roco is used quite commonly in the boat business now, is you can see that it gets a little bit of tear out here and there. Now, a lot of the stuff I've done this planing at low speed, and I'll use the edges that are appropriate that I can sand out. But you can see that this has a little more tear out on a Roco than there is on teak. So you have to be a little bit more careful with it. You can also see that this is a fairly light colored board. You can stain this to match other teak. I've found that a light go of Puritan Pine by Minwax will allow you to match up your other teak trim, and then put your varnish to it, and you've got a nice finish on top of that. We're going to go through the assembly process because I'm going to dowel these panels together, and I'm going to use epoxy. I like using epoxy because it is going to be UV protected by the finish, but the other part of this is epoxy is the strongest, and you've got this freestanding panel. You need all the strength you can get, in my opinion, so that it doesn't come apart, even years later. So that's my little update, and I'll send this along to Chris, and he can incorporate it into something in his. I'm not really used to the Hollywood thing, so we'll have to leave that for Chris. I've jointed the boards for Sherry's. I have an 8-inch long bed jointer, and that does a good job preparing the glue joints, and then I'll dowel them. I'll put them in the drill press and line up all the holes so that the dowel goes in and matches up everything. Bye for now, folks.
Spring is upon us. We're still in the middle of our COVID-19 isolation, and I'm able to get out to the marina, fortunately, and do a little bit of work. So today's through-haul day, so I'll give you a little tour of the projects we have to do in relation to our through holes. There's a lot of work there. So here we go. First thing I'm going to do is lubricate them again. I've been kind of every day spraying a bit of lubricant into the through hulls. Out of the 16 penetrations in the hull, there are 11 that are functioning through hulls, and those functioning through hulls are not currently functioning. So if we needed to close them in order to change a hose or fix something, we wouldn't have been able to. And that's one of the reasons we pulled it out of the water this year. So what we're going to do now is spray everything, and then we'll go inside and see what's loosened up over the weekend. Really good to be on board again. It's been a long winter, and the boat has fared pretty well. She's in really good shape, just as lovely as ever. Really like this boat. As you saw, I went around down below and did some lubricating again, and there are 15 hull penetrations here. I think I said 16 earlier. There are 15 hull penetrations, and 13 of those are opening through hulls. So, and actually, the proper terminology would be Seacocks. They're appropriate blue water hull penetrations. So you can close them off. They're entirely bronze. They're really good quality ones, but they've seized up. So in order for us to launch this boat and be confident offshore with it, we need to get those things functioning again. So I've already managed to get a few of them loosened up using just lubrication. So we're going to try a few other tricks today. But first of all, I want to go around and mark the ones that are done, and maybe take them apart and put a little bit of grease on them. So let's get at that. So we're going to start in the head here. Now this is these are on the port side of the boat, and there are two through hulls here. Now I'll just show them to you. Get my light in there, and you can see somebody's actually broken these handles off, which we'll be replacing. You can see the handles have been broken. There's one over here as well that's broken. So we're going to use a adjustable wrench on those ones. So let's just see if the lubrication has done its job. Oh, that one's working nicely. And then over here, oh yeah. So 2 out of 13 isn't bad. What we'll do is we'll get ourselves some painter tape, and I'll use the tape to mark which ones are done. And then on the outside, I'll mark the ones where the lubrication has been effective with an indelible marker. And that way we know which ones to continue focusing on. It's just a process of elimination. So a little bit of blue tape on the ones that are serviced. What we'll do is we'll come back and we'll disassemble those ones later on, and we'll pull the cones out of them and lubricate the cones so that they don't seize up again. But that's really good news. This is working. Let's go forward and try a few more. So I'm going to use my handy dandy persuader if need be, but first let's see if we can just get a hand on them and get them to move. Oh! Well, the forward one worked. Let's try this one. Give a little tap with a persuader. Well, that's 3 out of 4. That's not too bad at all. 3 out of 4 works well for me. So we'll mark this small one up forward. Turn the light off. Okay. Alrighty, so before we forget which ones are working, let's go outside and we'll go to these through hulls and we'll mark the ones that no longer need to be lubricated. Boy, it's looking a lot better already. When we took this out of the water, 11 out of the 13 functioning through hulls, or closable through hulls, did not work. And now we've actually got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them working, and we've only just begun, so it's good news. So I'm going to mark these using an indelible marker. We're going to sand the anti-fouling, and we're going to go over this as well. So next to them, to the right of each one that's working, I'm going to put a little check mark. Okay? So that one's working. This one's working. Could have brought a better marker, I guess. This one is not working. Then there's the small one way up forward. It is working. Now, one thing we did do just before the boat was launched, this was for our peace of mind, I guess you want to call it. We did a little chart up, and this chart shows all the penetrations in the hull. So there's the little one up forward that we just got working. This one is not. These two are working now. And we're going to go to the back of the boat now. We're going to look at these 4 on the port side again. These 2 represent instruments. One of them I've repaired already and reinstalled. And this is the stuffing box, which we repaired before we left Rock Hall. So 15, actually 16 hull penetrations. I was wrong again in total. 13 of which are opening through hulls. And of those 13, I believe we have 5 working. Okay, let's have a look at the first one. It's right here. And if I just set this camera down here for a moment, I'll reach in and see if I can get that moving. Nope, that one's still seized. Okay, let's go into the head here. Now under the sink, there are a few more. That one's working, so we'll get some blue tape on that. Don't have to worry about that one anymore. We're still going to come back and take them apart and grease them, but that's just a regular maintenance thing. This issue of not being able to move them is a big problem. Okay, this one's working. So we'll put some blue tape on that one, and then we just have that smaller one that is not working. Sorry, we have a smaller one and we have one way aft. So let's go mark them on the outside. Isn't this fun? A lot of up and down. So here we are. So that one works. That's a terrible marker. And that one works. This one doesn't, and this one doesn't. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 functioning through holes. Okay. 5 out of 13. That leaves me 8 that need repair. And we're not even done yet. So let's go see what we can do about those. Well, good news. I pulled out my trusty persuader and gave the small one a whack, which is right down there, and it is now working. So that's 6. Okay, we're just going to check what we've got for numbers. But it appears on the starboard side, aft, there are 1, 2, 3, 4. You can see them all right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, sorry, 5. So 5 hole penetrations that need to be dealt with there. So let's start with number 1, and it is the one furthest up the hull. Just gonna grab my handy dandy tape. Okay, here's number 1. Some wiring there that needs to be dealt with, definitely. But for now, we're only working on through hulls. Okay, it's not working. I think it's moving. It is. It is. Yeah. Wow. That's 7 out of 13. 6 more to go. Life is looking better. So we'll put a bit of blue tape on that one. That's number 7. Boy, it's still quite stiff, but I think we'll pull it apart and we'll do some lubricating with white grease. And lithium grease will clean it right up and get it going. Okay, so that's 1 on this side, 4 more to go. There are 5 on this side, so the last 4 are all in the engine bay, I believe. Yes. Now the first one is right here. There is a bit of water in the bilge right now, as you can see. Several reasons for that. But the main reason is that I've taken the cover off and it's been raining and there's a few leaks in the hull. So the first one is right here. This one right here. That is a drain for the forward scupper port side in the cockpit. So let's get that fixed up. I think it's going to need the persuader. Well, that one was a no-go. I even tried putting a wrench over the top of it and hitting it, but it doesn't seem to want to move. So let's move on to the next 3. So we're under the sink right now, and probably the most inaccessible, let me get this light out of the way, probably in the most inaccessible place on the boat. And there are 2 through hulls in here that I managed to open. There's one more that I did not, and I'm finding that if I loosen the nut off, the tension nut on the back end of it, they actually sometimes come loose for me. So we're going to try that with this this one that's giving me grief here. So we'll show you the ones anyway that I got opened. So this little guy right here is now working. I'll just show you here. It's working well. I did loosen the nut off on that one. So we'll get ourselves a piece of blue tape for that one. Let's put that around the handle since the hose is not on it. And we got one more to go back here that also opened up for me, and I used the adjustable wrench on that one, so I got a bit of leverage on that one. Get our piece of tape, and it is this one right here. So the only remaining one is back there. Look how corroded that is. You see that? So those nuts at the back end that we're tensioning them with, they create the friction when you open and close it, so it just doesn't flop open unexpectedly. Those nuts I'm going to loosen off, and then we're going to put the adjustable on there and see if we can't get it to come off. So stand by. Oh, you're hard to get you. Okay. So there's that. Pretty corroded. And one more. Sometimes these things are going to give you grief, and certainly this one is. I've tried just about every tool I got. I'm going to resort to this little pipe wrench right now, just because for whatever reason I can't get a good angle on the whole thing, and this handle is short enough to do that. So we'll see if we can't get that thing to move with this. When you're in situations like this, take a deep breath, take your tension away, relax, and go at it again very slowly and systematically, rather than getting all uptight and frustrated and having to walk off, which is sort of how I used to do things. Anyway, today we're gonna go calmly in and get this done. Who would put a through hull in such an inaccessible spot? That is dumb. Just why would you do that? Why in the world would you do that? For goodness sakes, turn the darn thing around. Oh, I don't bend that way anymore. Okay, a bit of carnage down there. I've been trying every tool I can get my hands on. We did manage to get 3 out of 5 on the starboard side, aft. So let's go down and mark those. Okay, so we've already marked these. Well, it looks like I've got 9 out of 13 of the through hulls done and working. And so that leaves me 4 more that we're going to have to lubricate for a while longer. Maybe get some big guns out. So we'll try a few things. I do have the ladder tied off, by the way. anyway. That's for Debbie's benefit.
Talk to me.